Hello, welcome back. It's Panasonic time once again. Let's get the mic orientated correctly. I think we're good now. And see if we can get this up a little bit faster than before. Looks like we've got good now. Signs of life. Everything's okay. Everything's okay. The Panasonic GH6. Heaven or hell? That is tonight's question. As I just have a sip of this decaf here. I gotta say, I think it's hell. I think of the two options, hell is a more fitting description. But if you own the Panasonic GH6, by all means, leave a comment. I'm curious as to the mental state of Panasonic GH6 owners. I think the only thing that's holding them up, and it's just a thread, is that there's no GH7. That's it. The Panasonic GH6 has turned out to be a bit of a child that only its mother could love. Yeah, it's one of those types of cameras. I'm not saying that people who own the GH6 should go and get an exorcism and dump it on the secondary market. What I am saying is that the Panasonic GH6 will leave its owner frustrated, asking questions, not feeling comfortable about how other people perceive them and the choices that they made in their photography life. Heaven or hell? Could it be heaven? If you're someone who is absolutely blessed with a complete lack of self-consciousness, no self-awareness, you're just happy, you don't care about anything else outside that's going on, you're someone who's not materialistic, you're someone who doesn't need that autofocus, you're someone who can look at the streaking as an artistic flair that camera has, then yeah, you could be in Panasonic heaven. But that's like 1 or 0.1% of the user base, I would say. People are letting these cameras go. I'm finding that these YouTubers, now they don't represent everybody, but they seem pretty happy to move on. Initially, I was critical of people who ditched that camera, and I still am to a point, because I think if you ditch a camera after less than a year, and some of these people was less than like 3 months, you're not giving it a chance, and you're living in a bit of a fantasy, luxurious sort of life where you can buy these multi-$1,000 toys and then just ditch them because of some little problem that perhaps you could have learned about by some product research. But no, they had to get the latest toy. They had to own it, they had to make the content, had to be part of the hype. Now the hype's died off. The Panasonic GH6 is one of those cameras where it just will never have a real home, I don't think. At least that's my reading in 2024. Maybe 2 years down the track we'll look back and have a little bit more clarity or a little bit more confidence in the camera. Heaven or hell? I think it's hell. I really do think it's a hell-raising, hellish, hell-inducing, diabolical bit of machinery. can you imagine like having? I mean, having that thing around your neck for more than 10 minutes. You're going to be regretting buying a camera that big. If you go out on a photo walk with a GH5 with a really, really small lens, like the 15mm f1.7, you're still feeling that after about half an hour, you really feel that. You really feel that if you're out on a photo walk. You won't notice it when you set out, but after half an hour, it's weighing you down. In the world of cameras, every 50 grams is a big deal. And people are like, oh, it's only, this camera's 100 grams different, or that camera's 100. That's quite a lot. That's quite a lot. And the GH6, not only that, but the bulk of it. Just to get the numbers straight. 825, 23 grams versus 645 for the GH5. So that's a big fucking difference if those numbers are right. People saying a GH5S is 660. Anyway, whatever. It's a bigger, heavier camera. That's like a millstone around your neck. You take a GH5, you're basically getting a free lens. This isn't a camera that you can just casually, sling around your neck and go take some photos. Don't get me wrong, in a backpack, 100 grams in a backpack is not going to be a deal breaker. If you just have to go from point A to point B, you go for a 1 hour walk or something, then get your camera out, take a few shots, put it back in the bag, that's fine. But photo walk, where it's around your neck, that's horrible. Even with the GH5, I find myself carrying it in my hand, even on 5-minute walks. I just because I've had some history of neck problems, I don't want it around my neck. I start to feel it, after a few minutes. And you can have the most comfortable padded strap that you like. It's going to be the GH6 is not a photo walk camera unless you want to carry it. Maybe invest in one of those little, it's a little quick release that go on a backpack strap and it's sort of on your chest. But who wants the big fucking 800 gram thing flopping around up there? That's crazy talk. That's crazy talk. So, heaven or hell? I say it's hell for photo walks. And that's what M43 is all about. The GH5, okay, it was kind of a big camera, but it didn't push you out into crazy land. It didn't have this fucking fan. Can you imagine, what are those fans going to be like? Can you imagine if those fans all start making noises in 5 years from now? There'll be a stampede back to the GH5. Or there'll be a small cottage industry. Not that there are probably enough GH6s in existence to fuel the industry, but there'll be a little industry in replacing those fans. And I bet they're a bitch to replace. Heaven or hell, they should have made a red version of it. Paint the camera red. It has that creepy sort of cursed sensor with the streaking. I mean, that is not a problem that people should have to deal with in 2024 or 2022 when the camera was released. People will say, oh, it can do the vertical resolution, it can do the high frame rates and high resolution stills handheld. If you had to, here's the thing, right? I think you got to ask yourself, because we all get wrapped up in the hype, we get wrapped up in the tech specs. Sometimes we feel like we need an upgrade when we actually don't. You got to ask yourself, what would be the first 5 sort of jobs, I suppose, photo jobs that you would do with a GH6. For me, number one would be get the tripod out, go to my favorite twitching site, and get some 4K 120 of some birds. That'd be number one. But after that, it's kind of hard to come up with a list. I'd probably try handheld high res, or even just on a tripod, the super high res mode. I like the idea of testing what resolving power I have. There's this sign that's across a bay, and I've tried to, resolve the writing on the sign with my 500mm lens, and I can't. So I'd like to see if you actually can get higher resolving power at very great distances with that technique. I suppose you should be able to. But then again, is the lack of resolution really a pixel restraint, or is it just softness because it's such a high zoom lens and the target's so far? I don't know. I tested out on a landscape as well. You know, stop another different lens, 50mm lens, stop it on f16, take a landscape shot, and see how much I can zoom in and zoom in and zoom in. That would be really interesting, because you're not. What's good about that high resolution is that you're not dependent on the resolving power of the lens. Whereas if you're trying to film 8K, not that it has 8K, but if you had an 8K camera, you're trying to film 8K video, your resolving power is limited by the lens. I think. Even in like a 20 megapixel shot, it probably is. But when you're using the software to just compare tiny differences between a series of photos, you should be able to actually blow past what the lens's limits are. So, yeah, it's all about signal processing. So that's two. I wouldn't care to try the vertical resolution. I'm sorry. I wouldn't care to try the 5.7K. I don't really give a shit about that. Maybe I'll try it just to see what it's like. Maybe again, if I could film a bird or something. I don't know what frame rates you can pull off in that mode, but and just zoom in and try and it's just not, in the long term, it's not something I would be repeatedly using. So yeah, 4K 120, high res mode, and then what? Oh, let's try the CF Express. Does that really change anything for me? No. All my lenses are going to be the same. Oh, I would try the autofocus. I'd actually try filming a helicopter. That was the first thing that failed me with the GH5. It was one of the first times I ever took it out. I couldn't believe it. And that's one reason for about 6 months to a year I very rarely used the camera. I really didn't think it was that. I almost thought the camera had a problem. And maybe it does have a problem with the autofocus, because it's that bad. You try and focus on something with autofocus, it'll be out of focus about 90% of the time. So with GH6, I'd try a helicopter, I'd try waves at a beach. That's the other thing that the GH5 can't autofocus on at all. I've seen that, what's his name, Richard Wong, he just runs up and down his backyard in front of the fucking lens. I feel like that must be a bit of an easy one. I'm guessing like waves and clouds and shit are a lot harder to autofocus on. So yeah, I'd give it a workout, because everyone was saying when it came out the autofocus was really good. And then as soon as the G9 Mark II, suddenly it's like, oh, the GH6 has shit autofocus. I'm not convinced it's shit. I think it's just a bit slow. I think it does the job. And then I talk about this pulsing, and you can't even notice the pulsing. I'm like, what pulsing? You're complaining about, I didn't see any pulsing. And they go, I mean, it's so minor in the background that you'd have to be absolutely, tech nerdy to to notice it, let alone be looking out for it. But yeah, I'd try out the autofocus, because if the autofocus was actually pretty good, then that camera, and it's like the last in line of the, what is it, contrast detection autofocuses. So seeing how far they could push that inferior technology would be quite interesting. And it would raise the camera in my esteem if it actually worked quite well. But I'll never know for sure till I own one, because no one tests it out in a proper way, in my view. I don't know how it would go capturing a bird in flight. I'm guessing not very well, but who knows. So yeah, 3 things, but I don't know, there's only really, I feel like autofocus is just testing. So there's only really 1 or 2 jobs or changes or positive experiences that I would have compared to another camera. Is that worth? I mean, it's not like it costs that much anymore. If I just needed a second camera with IBIS, I guess the IBIS got an upgrade. But if I just needed a second camera, yeah, I could get another one, but I don't need a second camera. You know, I've really already got 2, although one's mostly video. If I was doing a video production and I needed a third camera, I probably still wouldn't get it. Partly because of the price. Partly because I feel like I might as well just stick to the GH5 series in case there are any compatibility issues. I don't think there would be, of course, but there might be. Dare I say maybe that streaking issue? I don't know, maybe the colour science is slightly different. Not that I get wrapped up in the colour science. I feel like that's something people talk about too much. Yeah, skin tones. Like who the fuck notices skin tones being slightly different from one camera to the next? Anyway, yeah, there's just not a ton that I would do. I know if I bought one, as soon as the package turned up, I would feel guilty before I even cut it open. That's just me. I'd feel great. Like, if I was someone who had owned the GH5 since 2017, I probably would have bought a GH6 by now. But I bought the GH5 literally days before the GH5 Mark II came out in 2020. So it's a case of me not having owned. I mean, it's been 4 years, but it's not like, I think because of COVID, like, it just doesn't feel like 4 years for some reason. It's like there's 2 years there that never really happened. So yeah, heaven or hell, that's ultimately for the GH5 owners club to decide upon. But the GH6, the one thing I'll say is that it's a bit of a cliffhanger. It leaves us at an interesting juncture for the future. You know, there aren't many people making content about GH7 yet, because it just has, it's still a little bit early. But I think I think everyone's, maybe they're not assuming, but I just feel like no one's asking the question, what is the form factor going to be of that camera? I pray that it's not big and clunky like GH6. I pray they go back to a GH5 with a slightly better, maybe a slightly deeper hand grip, and that move the buttons to slightly better places, but don't increase the overall size of it. Make it slightly thinner if possible. Like, man, if they could do a GH7, and you know what they should do with the GH7 is make like 3 versions of it. The Pro version, which I talked about in the other stream, which would be closer to a GH6. Like a standard version, which would be maybe like a GH5 or a bit smaller, and then like a light version, which is just slimmed down as much as possible. Even if it has like a slightly smaller. I mean, the other thing is, the GH7S. That would be the fourth version. I wouldn't mind a GH7S that still has IBIS. Just get rid of the fucking big megapixel count. 10 megapixels, 10 to 12. IBIS. Man, if they could do an IBIS version and a not IBIS version, that'd be a tough choice. I think anyone who owns a GH5S is going to get the IBIS version. Because even though I mean, I shouldn't be talking about GH7, but not having IBIS is a huge asset in certain weird conditions, and allows you to capture a bit more of the sensor. But having IBIS with the low light would probably suit more people more of the time. So, and with maybe some slight upgrades to image processing, that thing will be a low light beast. I think that's what the GH7 needs to do, is instead of like going upwards, because it's really going to be hard to improve on it once they get the phase detect in there, they need to go sideways and just do different versions of it. It might become like the standard to own 2 versions of that camera. But yeah, back to the GH6, heaven or hell. Maybe I should have had a 3rd version, Purgatory. I'd say the GH6 is hell, but it's early days. There is a chance at redemption. I can't make the ultimate judgment till I own one. I mean, I've enjoyed owning one vicariously for 2 years. I am, people say it's about the photos, a new camera won't make you a better photographer. I mean, I'm sorry, Cupcake, but it's not just about the photos anymore. It's about the fucking gear. It just is. I mean, what is photography? It's a way of, I don't know, entertainment. It's a hobby, it's a leisure, it's a bit of enjoyment. It's not a necessary thing for most people, right? Almost no one makes a living. Those who say they're professional photographers, like, you scratch below the surface and, they're always trying to get money from other sources, right? So, yeah, it's a leisure hobby. Yeah, I forgot where I was going with this. But, oh yeah, it's not about taking the best photos and making them. It's about the whole damn thing. It's about the hype train, consumerism, technology, entertainment, dare I say. And GH6 has been a drama queen from day one. And it is the queen or the king of drama. I feel like it hasn't been milked quite as much as it could have been. But, it's about the gear. It's about the gear, not just the shit photos that we all take, or the shit video clips that we take. The gear is, in some ways, the most enjoyable aspect of the hobby. It's like having cars, right? Like, people buy these fast cars. Like, no one drives at 200k an hour. No one gets, like, the top 80%, 90% of the performance of those vehicles, right? But people still love the cars. They love the technology. And it's kind of like it is with cameras. You know, even iPhones and shit like that. Does anyone really use all the shit in their iPhone? I know I don't. So it is about the gear. The gear is a part of the spectacle. It's what entertains people. It's what people want to talk about. Who actually talks about real photography on their YouTube channels? I can think of like one or two that do, that have somehow got like 10,000 plus subs. But the really big channels, they're all gear based. And even the little photography channels, like, they still do have a smattering of gear based content. Not necessarily on Panasonic, but on this or that. So yeah, heaven or hell, we all have to make that judgment independently. But I'm just putting it out there. I think I'll wrap this one up. But I'm sure this won't be the last GH6 video.